The Secrets of Stargate is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, Episode 15.
Janet West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
All right, here we go. We are about to try to make a connection.
All we gotta do is bust out of here, commandeer the ship, and fly on home.
Indeed. You say that a lot.
I know that this could be dangerous. But this is our job, right? It's what we signed on to do.
It was never about going home. It's about getting us to where we're going.
Hi, I'm Jack Barazzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. Joining me today are Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father.
Howdy, Jack.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Today we are discussing the 15th episode of the first season of Stargate SG-1, Singularity. The team arrives on the planet Henka to observe a black hole. They discover that everyone is dead except for a young girl named Cassandra. They bring her back to the SGC where she bonds with Sam. Meanwhile, Jack and Teal'c, the two non-scientists on the team, stay back to observe the important scientific event. Cassandra becomes sick, and her condition continues to worsen. Dr. Fraser discovers a semi-organic bomb made of Stargates and bananas inside Cassandra. Jack and Teal'c discover that the black hole is actually a Goa'uld ship. Although given Jack's lack of basic understanding of what a black hole actually is, I don't know that I trust their conclusions. Cassandra is revealed to be a human time bomb sent by the Goa'uld Nerti to destroy the Stargate on Earth. SG-1 takes Cassandra to an old nuclear facility where she can explode without blowing up NORAD, but Sam realizes that the bomb is activated by proximity to the Stargate. The extremely accurate countdown clock ends without Cassandra exploding, and the team enjoys a wonderful stand around and laugh together ending.
Including a dog.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful.
You actually
dog.
mentioned my all-time favorite Beatles song, Stargate and Bananas. Stargate.
It was on the White Album, right?
Yeah, it was. It was the 9th track on that, I think.
What were your thoughts on this episode, Father Cory?
You know, it's one of these episodes that it's very memorable, and it is something they come back to eventually. This isn't the last time you see Cassandra, but it's I don't know. It's one of those episodes that's just kind of it's there.
Mm-hmm.
There's good parts about it, and obviously the purpose of this episode is the feels.
Yeah.
It's the feels of Sam and Dr. Fraser bonding with this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, and Dr. Jackson bonding with Sam as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely an overtone there.
As friends.
Just friends.
Just friends.
What about you, Lisa? What were your thoughts?
I agree with Father Cory. This episode is, kind of forget all the science and all the sci-fi aspects of it. This episode is all about, feeling good. You've got, little girl, you've got Sam kind of, it's her first episode to really find her feelings, right? Mm-hmm. She's been hardcore all this time. And there's a lot of feminists out there that I'm going to disagree with about this episode. But yeah, I mean, I'm watching it again. It's not terribly a must-watch, but it is a must-watch, but for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Victor?
No, I agree. When I saw this coming up in the rotation, I hadn't seen this since I, watched my way through this show many, many years ago. And I was like, oh, it's a, Cassandra episode. I guess I'll, knock this one out. And then I just hadn't remembered, there are moments of actual, tension in this episode. Mm-hmm. Some of the operating room scenes when you don't know what's going on, and they're just handled so well. Amanda Tapping, I mean, this is, with the exception of maybe one Stargate Atlantis episode, I think this is probably one of her finest moments in the entire run of the series. Mm-hmm. And the ending is just... I mean, if you're a parent, I mean, just the ending will just really hit you super hard. And then they just completely cut the legs out of the ending right at the end. And we'll talk about that as well. With just a couple words, it all sort of emotional, punch of the ending is just cut out at the end. But up until that point, I mean, this is like an actual like seat of edge of your seat, gripping the armrests, and there are some real moments of tension in this that I really liked. And then up until that, some of the last moments, just some really, the moments really land. And I think Robert C. Cooper, this is maybe his 4th episode for the show or something, but he really nails it here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would be with you, Victor, on that. It's mostly good, but the ending kind of falls flat. And I think that is more to do with the fact that you got to wrap things up in 45 minutes.
Well, it wasn't even that. We can jump to the ending. Just for folks who haven't seen it, Cassandra has a potassium and naquita bomb that's being organically created inside of her, and it's becomes more strong with proximity to the Stargate. There is, and they even hang a lantern on it and say, like, that ticking clock, how can you be so precise?
Right.
Well, we just know. So the only solution is to have Sam take her down into the middle of this dilapidated old, 30 floors deep nuclear bunker, and basically leave her there while she takes off and says, I'll be back, knowing that she's going to explode. And midway up the elevator back up, she, has, anybody in this position who has kids would say, well, I don't really care what happens to me. I'm not going to let this kid die alone. And so she goes back down, and lo and behold, the bomb doesn't go off because she's, Cassandra's far enough away from the Stargate. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And then at the end, I guess, because they didn't want her getting court-martialed for, violating a direct order, they say, like, well, how did you know? And Sam's like, I just knew. Well, really? How'd you know? I just knew, sir. And that just completely, takes out any of the, the emotional. No, I mean, if for it to mean anything, Sam can't just know that Cassandra is not going to blow up and take her with her. I mean, I didn't know would be the way to answer that question. Right. And still, but I mean, I guess, yeah.
They could even said something like, she could just flat out said, I just couldn't leave her alone at that time. And I mean, and that would actually ramped up the emotional.
Yeah, exactly.
That Sam was willing to take the risk and, give her life so that she could be with this little girl, at that last moment. But I just knew. It's like, no, you don't have, you're not really mother. I mean, she does play a mother in this, very much so, kind of a surrogate mother to Cassandra. But it's like, it wasn't motherly instincts. This was just, we wanted to make sure that Sam was there so you get the tears.
Yeah, they, and that's how they play that scene up until she says that. It's played like she's going down there to die with her.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I took it as she couldn't verbalize it. Right? Like, she couldn't leave her, but she couldn't say that she couldn't leave her. So, like, we all knew that's why she didn't leave her, right? But she couldn't say that. She just, that would be too much of a stretch. Because you had this military science female who, I mean, she's wanting to watch the black hole and let the little girl go to the SGC without her, right? She's all like, whatever, y'all send her away. I got to watch the scientific coolness going on, and it's like you watched her bond through the episode, right? And so, absolutely. I don't know, for her then to be able to verbalize, I'm emotionally attached and can't do this, that would have been a stretch for me. I think we all saw it by the way she acted.
Well,
I agree.
That's kind of the amazing part of Amanda Tapping's performance is you saw throughout, like the first time that Cassandra grabbed her arm, don't leave me, without even saying don't leave me, you just saw the look on her face like, what are you doing, kid? I mean, it was just kind of like, okay. But by the end, again, it was, she's in the elevator and she's breaking down. She's she's lost it, and that could say much more than any kind of lines of, trying to explain it.
Yeah, she and the actress who played the girl, they did a really good job with the nonverbal connection there on screen, conveying a lot just through like expressions and how they acted. Or where she goes to close the door at the very end when she's leaving her. That was rough.
Yeah. Lots of really nice touches that are very subtle in this episode. Too, when they first bring Cassandra through the Stargate, and Sam has been like, oh, it's okay, we're going to take you back to our planet, you're going to be safe, you're going to be cared for, it's going to be great. And they do a good job kind of showing the SGC through the eyes of this child, like they come in and it's like this horrible, brutalist architecture, military complex.
Cold. Yeah.
And it's like, here's your room. And it looks like a prison cell because they probably do use it, as a prison cell as well. And it's just, they handle that transition very well where they're bringing this kid into, the safe space and it's just this horrible prison essentially.
Well, everything gray. Especially, and that's one thing that actually kind of struck me is you had the planet, which was very bright and colorful. And, even with the fact that people had died, there was still just bright colors. And then you get into SGC and it's a gray cell with gray furniture, a gray bed with a gray blanket. It's just shades of gray. And it's just, it was such a stark contrast between the two of them.
Yeah, even just the lighting in this episode, like it was difficult to see what was going on sometimes. It was so dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very, very effective. Yeah. As well as the first time she meets, SG-1, they're all wearing their MOP 4, chemical suits and stuff.
Yep.
And so, it's just very good at like doing everything to show that this child has no reason to trust or want to go with these people or...
Oh,
and
come
then by
on.
the end, she's
Teal'c smile.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was a very nice smile, though. He changed from his Teal'c grimace to
Well, but he was
smile there.
very, very gentle, though. I mean, that was actually quite nice as he came up to her and was very, come on out. You don't have to fear us. He wasn't, come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that all four of them showed a lot of, plus Janet Fraser, a lot of that caring. And I think no matter who it was in this episode, you could see they all cared for her and connected with her in a certain way, right? It's just that the focus was on Sam and the bond that she grew with Cassandra.
And Daniel. No, there's that scene where they're walking and Daniel's like take care of yourself first, do something for you, self-care, Samantha.
I know. So when I rewatched it after you had said that like you're shipping Daniel and Sam now, I was like, no. And then I rewatched it and I'm like, I could see where you said that, but no.
Well, even at the end, they're like doing the swinging her back and forth and it's them two with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because this very much was a Jack and Teal'c are on planet. And Sam and Daniel and Fraser are taking care of the kid, right? So you had those nice poignant moments between Daniel and Sam, but I always will see them as siblings. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We also get the first mention of Naquadah in this episode, which is the element that the Stargate is built on.
Oh yeah, is this the first? This is the first mention of it.
Yeah.
I thought they used the name once before, that they knew the name because it had been said before. Because we obviously had all the way back to the movie where they talk about that they're mining the element that made up the Stargate, but not what that name is actually.
Yeah. I think it's at least the first episode where it's identified by name. I think they've talked about the Stargate being made out of an exotic element before, but this is the first time that you actually hear what it's named.
Right. Okay.
So,
and maybe it's something that Teal'c had told them off screen. That was the name of it.
And we got a new Gould this episode. Nirti, which we get to know very well later. So this was kind of a teaser for who she is and what she's capable of doing.
They call him a he in this one, though, which is some good misdirection.
Do what?
They call him a he in this one, though, which is some good misdirection. Yeah, they did. And then,
I really like the shot of the ship through the telescope where you can see parts of it, but you don't get to see the whole thing.
Right.
That's no moon. That's a Gould attack vessel.
Yeah. I'm a big sci-fi ship guy, so excited to see more of that.
You'll see a lot of them. You'll see a lot of them coming up. This is the first time we get to see them.
So the first time we saw the ship, right?
Yep.
Yes. This is kind of a tangent, but I think I've told you all this before off air, but my church is building the thing where they hold like the urns for the ashes, and it's a big golden, a columbarium. It's a big golden pyramid with like 3 gray concrete fins that are coming off the side, and it looks just like a gold ship. So every time we drive past it, that's what I've been thinking of.
Maybe it really is.
Perhaps.
Maybe your pastor's actually a gold, and he's going to use that to get home.
Yeah. I mean, his eyes do glow sometimes when he's giving a homily. I just thought he was on fire, but I don't know.
Altar server, Cree.
Yeah.
But speaking of ships, we get a really nice shot of the Death Glider going through the Stargate in this one that I think they used for the intros in several seasons, but it's just a nice gratuitous touch, when they're being pursued on their way back to the gate.
Yeah, there was a lot of effects in this episode. Seems like they had a pretty good budget because you get like 3 or 4 shots of the actual Stargate operating rather than just doing the thing where they cast the light on them.
Yep.
And you get the Death Gliders, you get the ship.
Exactly.
Which is interesting because it's kind of incongruous with the very like personal focus of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the X-ray footage, though, where they're showing the device, being assembled, that's much better than, the sort of weird, like, PlayStation, 3D animation we got earlier on when they were trying to, like, grab the Gould out of Kowalski or something. And
it
looks like Frogger 3D or something.
Maybe it's towards the second half of the season. They have a little extra money, a little extra thrown around.
Yeah.
But that's what I like about this episode is it kind of tries to confuse you with there's a virus, there's the bio weapon in her body, the whole Trojan horse thing. But at the same time, it's not about any of that, right? It's almost like a distraction. Don't think about that. You're supposed to think about the humanity and the choices that we make, right? Mm-hmm. But it's in a sci-fi show.
Right. Well, I think that's what sci-fi does best is taking those kinds of stories and by putting it in a more fantastical setting, you can kind of view it without the same kind of lens you'd view something like if it was just a drama show. You might just think, oh, this is cheesy. I don't want to watch people feels, but you can do those kind of stories in a more expansive way, which is what I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do get this theme gets kind of revisited as well, like 9 or 10 years later in a Stargate Atlantis episode called Sunday, where the Stargate crew happens upon an ancient a laboratory built by the ancients who are the pre-existed the Gould and stuff. I accidentally turn on some machinery, and it's an ancient science experiment where they were experimenting with putting explosive tumors into people, ostensibly as a last ditch weapon to fight their enemies. And it's a very important episode in the franchise. I'll just say that, but. Sort of as a companion piece, it kind of makes you think, like, did the Gould get the idea from the ancients? In this SG-1 episode, they're able to have kind of a happy resolution to it, where that's not the case in the Atlantis episode.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That is cool. I almost thought, I felt like the way the direction was going with how Cassandra was acting, I felt like that the twist was going to be that she had killed everyone on the planet somehow, and she was like not actually a girl or something like that. So that's where I thought they were going with that.
Wait a few seasons. It's a little dark for season 1, but they do do that.
We get that later on.
Yeah.
So I'm used to the X-Files doing stuff like that, but
yeah. Well, I did think it was an interesting concept though of the fact that the bomb would get stronger, and of course they did flat out state that that was the trap, was to send the bomb back through the Stargate, because as soon as you did it, the Stargate would explode. But that was kind of an interesting concept of some energy or something that the Stargate gets off, or it reacts to the naquadah in the Stargate. The closer the person got to the Stargate, the worse it got.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, the further they go away, the further it would eventually disappear.
I'd like to think, though, that Cassandra's keto diet also played a part in making the bomb dissolve. Eating the hot dog with no bun.
Yeah. No ketchup, no mustard, no bun.
Yeah. Isn't that how all kids eat it, though?
It is.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Yes. I used to at least dip it in the ketchup. I mean,
my son just wants it plain.
Of course, you forget, like, we get to the whole end of the episode, and she's like, what's a swing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that when she points over and she's like, what are those? I thought that they were going to pan over and it was going to be like a group of like boys or something, and they were going to get the wah sound.
Or be Michael Jordan wearing some sneakers or something.
Yeah.
Well, we get a little Cassandra and boys later.
Yes, we do.
Right? Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that she comes back though, because the way Sam's talking to her at the end, she's like, yeah, I'll come visit you with your adopted parents. I'm like, oh, we're never going to see her again, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little while.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's second episode of season 2.
Is it real? Okay.
Yeah, we see her again, second episode of season 2. Briefly.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Okay.
And then we don't see her again until she has her 16th birthday.
Oh, we see very old Cassandra.
And then we see, that's true. We see very old because time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when she's the really thin, stretched piece of skin in that Doctor Who episode?
Moisturize me, moisturize me.
Moisturize me. Yeah,
Cassandra.
different Cassandra there. Yeah. Not that old. Although, I mean,
That's my headcanon now, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah. I thought it would have been cool if they had kept it that the bomb stays inside her, but she just can't get near a Stargate again.
Me too. I thought it was a little convenient that it just dissolves and all's good, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but of course.
Yeah. But she does retain her naquita, which comes in handy later, that she can sense Gould, which is how we run into her again. Yeah.
So
kind of
this
like
is
Teal'c and the other.
Yeah. This actually makes me think of an article I read the other day. Apparently, scientists have developed this device that is made out of like semi-organic material that will replace a pacemaker. Like they insert it into your heart and it will retune your heart's rhythm, and then it will dissolve so it doesn't stay in there like a pacemaker does. So that's kind of what it made me think of.
that is neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gold technology. We just don't know about it.
Well,
that is something we see. Yeah, the NID. Yeah, but it's something in the NID we do see. Throughout the show, people like adapting, alien technology and then kind of releasing it into the public as medical advances and stuff. So it could be.
And that actually becomes a major plot
legitimately
point:
believe
is that
that,
Stargate isn't doing enough to bring back technology.
That sounds like how this would actually go over with the U.S. government in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get a little realism as we go.
Yeah.
You just thought it was a human who invented Post-it notes.
Yeah. Well, that whole story about doing it for his church, for his choir at church, that's just a cover story.
Yeah.
His choir at church. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you've heard that's the story that 3M tells about how Post-it notes came to be. The guy who invented it worked for 3M, and they had this new glue that was sticky but not like permanent. And he's, well, let's try it on my choir books for church, and it worked so great that now, of course, 3M makes millions and millions and millions of dollars in Post-it notes every year.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy that, because it's like these stories that when you find out like how these artificial sweeteners are discovered, that it's basically like people in a laboratory mixing up different things, and then they spill it and get it on their hands, and then the first thing they do is kind of lick their hands and say, "Oh, it's sweet," It's like, and then that's how you get NutraSweet and stuff. And I'm like,
who does that?
That doesn't make me feel better.
You don't hear about all the people who died in labs. Is that it? Who licked their hands?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we all know that the real thing is it was the Ferengi when they went back in time to Area 51. Right. That's the real source of all this technology.
It's a very good episode of Deep Space Nine.
That's a great episode, Little Green Men.
Hey, I wasn't the first person to mention Star Trek.
And I don't have a drink tonight. I just got water. So
no, I just took a drink too. So
So I do really like.
No, you were the first to mention Doctor Who, though. So
yes, there we go. I really like the scene where O'Neill is explaining the black hole horribly to Teal. Well, a black hole is a big thing, basically a massive hole. And I feel like they're kind of doing that. Yes. They're like hanging the lantern on the hole. I feel like anytime there's ever a black hole in a science fiction movie, you'll have like the team of like expert scientists, and then the dude will be like, here's the piece of paper, I'm going to draw a line and then poke the pencil through the paper, like to the scientists who know the basics of a black hole. So I like how they hung the lantern on that there.
We get a wonderful play on that coming up in 2 episodes when we meet the Tolans, right? So, where Dan's trying to figure. I don't want to spoil it, but Daniel Jackson's trying to figure out how they're able to, travel through space and time, and comes up with a very common metaphor. And there's a funny moment with that. So
nice.
There's a great line about quantum physics as well, and but
and another Carter boyfriend.
Yep.
Well, that's right.
Yep.
Gotta keep it tally.
Of course, I love how it's supposed to be looking at a black hole, and it's what you see on the monitor is a very average solar eclipse. Yeah, I mean nothing real fancy.
So
you're
is
right
the
about
black
that.
hole
They
passing?
talked about it being an eclipse, but they also talked about being a black hole. So which was it?
Well, it was
what
a
it is. So.
black hole eclipse. So the idea is supposed to be that the black hole is big enough that it would absorb the light from the sun. But then you would see the accretion disk, the disk around or the event horizon around the black hole from the sun's light swirling around it, supposedly.
So the black
I'm
hole
watching
isn't
Victor's
passing
hands
between
do
the
this.
yeah. So the black hole isn't passing between the planet and the sun, or I don't know.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be a very small black hole.
They handle black holes much
Just
better.
pay
later in
attention to the tears and the human element, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the point of this episode is the tears.
The real black hole was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. And the bases we made along the way, because this is like the first example I think we see of a like more or less permanent base that Earth has set up on another planet. We have like the whole radio telescope, we have the observatory with the optical telescope, we have the sign, the very permanent sign that's been put up. And you see that first, it's an awesome sign, but then they pan over and it's like a village, and you're like, did we just like go to this planet and start like putting up signs and like
yeah?
Are you saying humans wouldn't immediately do that?
Yeah, exactly. Who's gonna see it?
But again, we had another SG team that is all killed. So since we've already ripped off the Star Trek Band-Aid, we're going to call them all red shirts, right?
Yeah, there you go.
SG-7.
SG-7.
RAP. Yeah. RAP.
Well, and plus the 1,000 villagers. That's a pretty good sized village since, the technology seems to be, medieval era. You don't really see any kind of technology that they show. Of course, they don't show the village at all, but it just, you don't see any kind of sign of technology other than the Earth technology.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the first? So what are we up to now for SG teams? Is this the 7? Is that the furthest, the most numbered team we've seen?
I think we saw 9 a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. I can't remember what all we see now. Of course, the initial idea was there were 9 teams, but we haven't seen all 9 yet.
Yeah, but pretty soon it's like take SG-21 and SG-47 and get out there, and it's like
and the Russians and SG yet,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense that they would expand as their mission profiles keep expanding.
Yep.
Yeah, once you hit season 8, it's all fair game.
Yeah, it looks like by season 2 we're up to SG-11, so we do have SG inflation as we go along there. So.
It does go to 11.
Okay, I have to bring up that I was looking around on the internet about this episode, and there's some really well developed blog posts and articles about this episode, but it all has to do with the whole Carter is military and she can't show emotion, and she was just faking how she wanted to look at the black hole because the last episode they talked about, I don't know how to be a girl with the guys. Remember that phrase and Hathor?
Oh yeah.
And so they had this whole take on this episode of her repressing her emotion because she was military and like what she was really feeling. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
well, she even comments on that where she says, I'm not supposed to have attachment.
Right.
And Daniel says, why not?
Yeah.
She goes, oh, that's right. I keep forgetting you're not military.
But I guess I didn't see this as divergent, maybe because I am a woman. I didn't see it as she is woman, so she's trying to pretend she's not. I felt it as she is a scientist and she is a military officer.
Mm-hmm.
So she buys into all of that and the detachment and everything else.
Right. No, and I agree with that 100%.
If you look at it, if it was Jack, if it was Teal'c, if it was Daniel trying to take that child into the military, the nuclear warhead, whatever, all of them, no matter who had starred in this episode, they all would have struggled with that decision, right?
Yeah.
The humanity.
Oh,
of
yeah.
it. So I guess I see it as she struggled because, not because she's woman and she's maternalistic and all this stuff, but just because she's human. And that's what we do, right?
She's not a psychopath.
I didn't feel that it was out of character for her and it was trying to make some grand global statement. The article was saying because G.I. Jane came out, the Demi Moore movie came out the same year.
Terrible.
And, all this stuff. And I was like, I I don't know. I think y'all are trying too hard.
Well, and also, I mean, in fiction, heroes or protagonists who can compartmentalize, you know, really don't make for that compelling of a protagonist. Like if somebody's able to say, I'm just going to be like a military person and I'm going to compartmentalize everything else, there's no story there really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it was like to be a woman serving in the military in, you know, 20 long time ago. I don't want to hash this over 20 years ago. So yeah, I don't know, but the way they play it on the show is like, you know, General Hammond and Jack don't compartmentalize, you know, their humanity or their emotions. So I don't know why we would expect Sam to either.
Well,
it's just not the kind of show it is.
I mean, they do. I mean, of course, you know, part of military training is learning how to do your job despite your emotions. And, you know, that could definitely be a part of it. You know, being a scientist means you need to find what the truth is despite your emotions and so on. And, you know, I could see that struggle. Anybody, you know, and of course, how many times is there the stereotypical scientist who's completely unemotional, no emotions whatsoever. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. It's just, this is a scientist and his whole life is being a scientist. Of course, usually that's the person in Doctor Who that then breaks with reality, but that's another story.
Or we get Spock and Data and
Right. And I don't think that I felt like we had Teal'c, who had his emotional episode where he goes back with his son, becoming a Jaffa. And we had, you know, well, we've had several with Jack, you know, with his, what was it? The
Crystal Son, yeah.
Do it.
The Crystal
with the
Son.
twin.
The Crystal, that was it. Yeah. And so I felt like this was her episode, right? This was her episode to show who she was, a well-rounded person and all that. So I guess I read some of these articles and I'm thinking, I just can't read all that into it. I just felt like, you know, I think anyone would have struggled with that. And it was just showing the humanity of the character. Because if she was just scientist, especially as a woman, I mean, I think she wouldn't have had the audience appeal that she had.
Yeah. I think SG-6 may have been able to leave Cassandra down there to die alone, but this show's not about them. Those guys look mean.
Run away!
But, yeah.
Right. But I do have to say, I struggled with the whole wrap it up with they had Sam get attached to her, but then Frasier adopted her, right? But the reality is you couldn't have Sam adopt a kid when she's off-world all the time, right?
Right.
You got to leave her single, unattached, so that she can go be, you know, what she's supposed to be or whatever. So, and it works out because Frasier's a good mom.
Oh, yes.
It's nice how Jack was also looking out for her future. He got her invested in Dogecoin early on.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. It's law that every child has to have a dog.
Yeah.
So I noticed that Dr. Frasier wasn't there to veto this particular law.
You get the kid.
Yeah.
It's not like she can say no to her.
Right.
Yeah, but the next time
Jack
Jack gets some sort of like brain parasite or nanite infestation, let's just see how long it takes Dr. Frasier to.
So about that dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think this was a good episode.
Yeah.
Going into this discussion, I was less positive on it, but you convinced me.
Yeah, and that was going into watching it again, I was like, oh, it's another kind of filler episode, and then I was just amazed by how, you know, how tense, like I said, some of the operating where they don't know what's going on and they're trying to, and it's killing her and they're trying to shock her and then they can't do too much. And you know, Dr. Warner's there again. Yay, Dr. Warner. And he's wrong about everything, but I love him. And then, and then that ending, which, you know, I understand a little bit better now, you know, through that lens of, you know, being in that military and that scientific, you know, the mind there. So yeah, I liked it.
I think that's what saved it, right? If you just look at the plot line of this story, it's like, meh, right?
Yeah.
But I think that it was good, solid acting. And I would argue writing, you know, that they moved it along and made it something that, even if you don't remember all of the details of the episode, you know, 20 some odd years later, you remember the emotion, right? That it gave you, and that you feel attached to the character of Cassandra and what they went through to keep her alive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Even when she turns into a bratty teenager.
Yeah.
Or a smug know-it-all octogenarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts on this episode, Father Cory?
Just one thing that they showed that does come up every once in a while is that the homemade DHD on Earth is nowhere near as quick as the actual DHDs, and that becomes major plot points at times in the series where they're trying to dial out, and like you see in this episode, they're trying to dial out, and there's going Chevron 1, Chevron 2, Chevron 3, incoming warble before they can get it finished. And that's just because, of course, the native ones are designed for the Stargate, whereas, as Sam mentioned, that it took them years to even get something working. Period.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I like how they thought of that in the technology sense.
And of course, we know that Jack does like astronomy and doesn't just look at his neighbors through the telescope. So
yeah,
To begin with.
to begin with,
That's how we started.
Otherwise, he's kind of not doing much in this episode, which is okay. We don't need a.
Yeah, we've had a lot of Jack
Comic
episodes.
relief in this episode. What about you, Lisa? Any other thoughts?
No, I just, it was good to rewatch it and kind of experience it all over again.
What about you, Victor?
Just, it's impossible to watch something about a, contagious parasite or bacteria or virus these days, as you noted as well, like, can I take this mask off? And Fraser's like, yeah, it's safe. Just don't get too close. And you're like, I'm like thinking 6 feet, you're way up in her face.
yeah.
But, I was just reading my notes. I was like, the whole, like when Fraser says, just don't get too close. I think that's kind of the theme of the episode. I don't know if they intended that, but that's the metatextual, I think, interpretation of that.
Nice. Did not pick up on it.
We can be smart on this podcast too.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Stephen C., Mark B., Joe J., Jimmy D., and Megs G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. You can also join the StarQuest fan club mailing list by texting StarQuest to 66866. Send StarQuest to 66866. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of SG-1, Cory. Until then, Father Cory, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thank you, Jack.
Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thank you, Jack.
And once again, I'm Jack Berrezzini. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?
Stargates and